of Portland.
CNN Today with Lou Waters and Natalie Allen. Weekdays on CNN.
Belgrade assesses damage from the first bombing it's endured since World War II, while residents adapt to life in underground shelters. And Kosovo refugees seek help in Macedonia and Albania. Welcome to World News, to our viewers around the world and in North America. I'm Marina Colby at the CNN Center in Atlanta. Yugoslav authorities are assessing the damage caused by the latest round of NATO airstrikes. NATO cruise missiles struck the heart of the Yugoslav capital, Belgrade, early Saturday morning. Flames engulfed the internal affairs ministries for Serbia and Yugoslavia. No one was reported hurt in the blast, but doctors say it caused much concern in a hospital nearby.
Well, you see, we have felt one more blow from the vandals, which we didn't believe would still occur. Here we have one of the largest maternity wards in the Balkans. The maternity ward is housed next to the neuropsychology ward and the central pharmacy warehouse. We have experienced bombardment again. It is truly sad that the flames are literally next to us at the clinic. With luck, we have successfully evacuated our patients, evacuated our babies, their mothers. They're all safe. And to let their loved ones know that they are safe and healthy.
Yugoslav officials are condemning the latest NATO attack, saying it has pulled innocent civilians into the conflict.
I am shocked. That's very difficult to believe. United States of America did and ordered this. Multi-ethnic, multicultural, multi-religious America supported the concept of Greater Albania in Balkans, in the heart of Serbia. They are supporting Albanian terrorists to create in the heart of Serbia Albanian Muslim ethnic state.
NATO says U.S. and British cruise missiles were used in the latest attack. NATO says more airstrikes are not planned for Saturday morning. Despite the intensified bombing, some analysts say Yugoslav President Slobodan Milosevic is prevailing in his goals. CNN military affairs correspondent Jimmy McIntyre reports.
As promised, NATO took its bombing campaign to downtown Belgrade. 7 cruise missiles fired from a pair of U.S. warships reduced the federal and Serbian ministries of internal affairs to flaming rubble. The attacks assumed a new urgency because the latest U.S. intelligence reports from Kosovo indicate Yugoslav President Slobodan Milosevic may be close to accomplishing his goals of purging large numbers of ethnic Albanians, eliminating the Albanian elite, and mopping up the last of the rebel fighters. CNN has learned that a classified U.S. report concludes President Milosevic may be only days away from declaring victory and may be ready to call a ceasefire in a ploy aimed at halting the NATO attacks. The report suggests the Yugoslav leader may in fact be trying to cut a deal with Kosovar leader Ibrahim Rugova, who was seen on Serbian TV Thursday meeting with Milosevic in Belgrade. That would allow Milosevic to claim he has agreed to a separate peace deal with Rugova as head of an autonomous Kosovo, although by then the province would have been pacified and ethnically cleansed. The Pentagon says the headquarters buildings in downtown Belgrade were targeted because they control the forces that are responsible for what the U.S. calls ethnic cleansing in Kosovo. Other attacks by manned aircraft, including F-117 stealth fighters, had to be called off, officials say, because of some of the worst weather since the beginning of the bombing campaign. The persistent cloud cover has forced many NATO planes to return without dropping their bombs. But nevertheless, the Pentagon says the airstrikes are succeeding in choking off the Yugoslav army by cutting supply lines and destroying major fuel storage centers.
We clearly are having some impact on command and control. We're seeing some morale problems in the Army. The forces are clearly more wary of being hit. They've had to disperse more and having a harder time operating in large coherent units.
And sources say the Pentagon is mulling a request to send the Army's ground-based anti-personnel missile system, known as ATACMS, to neighboring Albania or Macedonia. And sources say NATO is about to add the U.S. aircraft carrier Theodore Roosevelt to its arsenal, along with 3 more cruise missile firing ships and a submarine. Jamie McIntyre, CNN, the Pentagon.
And now for the latest, we go live to CNN's Alessio Vinci, who joins us from Belgrade with more. Alessio?
Marina, the all-clear sirens went off early this morning, a sign of relief perhaps for many residents here after last night's NATO attack against targets in the very heart of the city. It was just past 1 in the morning local time when we heard 2, maybe 3 large explosions. A cloud of smoke rose to the sky, and then we saw a huge fire which lasted for several hours into the night as firefighters tried to control it, struggling against the magnitude of the fire hampered by the intense heat. The headquarters of both the Yugoslav and the Serbian information ministries took a direct hit, a message to Yugoslav President Slobodan Milosevic that NATO is carrying out its threat to attack his chain of command. The Serbian interior minister rushed the scene, and here is what he had to say.
I can say this is part of a monstrous criminal proportions and nothing more. We will rebuild a new building because we will take care of the people, the state. We are united. We will rebuild an even better edifice than the one these Nazis are trying to destroy.
Marina, this kind of attack will only further unify anti-NATO sentiments here in the country. Surprisingly enough, within minutes of the attacks, Serb television showed pictures of the buildings on fire, a way perhaps to share the outrage among average citizens here in the country. Belgrade residents are said to be shocked and angered by the magnitude of the attack, and there is no indication at this time that the leadership here is considering changing its position regarding Kosovo. Serbian television announcing that an anti-NATO concert that have been taking place here every day for the past week will take place again today in the same square, just minutes away from the targeted buildings. And the few people I was able to talk to are telling me that today there will be more people than ever. Also, a large university medical complex located very near the 2 ministries was immediately evacuated. Serbian television reporting that babies in the maternity ward have been at risk, but the doctors managed to move them all to safe locations. The large explosion, the TV report said, shook the clinic, terrifying children and other patients who seek refuge in the hospital shelters. Marina.
Alessio, any reports of casualties from this raid?
Marina, there's been no report on casualties at this time. However, the 2 important ministries have been on NATO's target list for quite some time now, so it is possible that the authorities here ordered all personnel to stay away, especially at night. Marina.
CNN's Alessio Vinci reporting. Bad weather over the Balkans is limiting what NATO can do at this time in Operation Allied Force. CNN's Jane Raff joins us from Alliance headquarters in Brussels, Belgium with more. Jane?
Marina, NATO officials this morning reporting that 8 cruise missiles were dropped on targets in Serbia. Most dramatically, those 2 interior ministry buildings in Belgrade. And despite evacuation of patients from a hospital near those buildings, NATO sources here are describing that strike last night as surgical. They say collateral damage was kept to a minimum, and they're still assessing, but they say as far as they know, no civilians were killed in those attacks. Other targets last night, they say they had included fuel depots and radar installations in Serbia, as well as a military headquarters building in Niš, south of Belgrade. The damage on Belgrade could very well have been larger, but NATO says it aborted some of its planned attacks because of cloud cover over the area. Also this morning, NATO sources saying that their troops in Macedonia will be making more of an effort to help refugees who are still flooding into Macedonia, threatening to overwhelm that country. Officials here making the point that those refugees, some of them coming with horrific stories and in terrible conditions, are some of the lucky ones. They're still worried about tens of thousands of displaced ethnic Albanians inside Kosovo. Their fate is unknown. Marina?
Jane, any word on whether NATO has made an assessment of how the strikes are going so far?
They frequently make assessments, and they do their own assessments, certainly, on a minute-to-minute basis as the information comes in. What they're telling us is that although they've been hampered by the weather, those strikes that they say were aborted last night and on almost every other night since the airstrikes began, they believe they are making progress. In the wider sense, they say they're limiting the capability of President Milosevic to carry out what they call his campaign of ethnic cleansing by hitting those major military targets, by hitting the fuel supplies, by hitting the air defense and radar installations. Now, last night, we've seen them step up their campaign to go to the heart of what they say is the planning and execution of ethnic cleansing in Kosovo. What they are saying as well, though, is there's not very much they can do to stop some of the paramilitary actions on the ground. But they say that this is an ongoing campaign and they're going to keep up that pressure. Marina?
Why can they not to stop some of that paramilitary action on the ground?
Because airstrikes would never be able to do that, they say. The airstrikes are aimed primarily at dismantling the military machine of Milosevic. We're talking basically about men with weapons and things going on the ground that airstrikes can't possibly reach. NATO officials say they always knew that was the case, that airstrikes were never intended to attack that they were hoping at first that these airstrikes on Milosevic and his assets would deter him from launching that campaign. When it didn't, they're now into a phase where they hope it will weaken him enough that he will stop. But they say it's always been clear to them that there's not very much they can do on the ground. What they're hoping for is to steadily weaken him until he stops. Marina?
CNN's Jane Araf reporting from Brussels, Belgium. The United Nations says it is having a hard time counting the tens of thousands of refugees streaming out of Kosovo. The influx of refugees is creating a humanitarian crisis for the province's neighbors. CNN's Matthew Chance joins us from Macedonia with more. Matthew?
Hello, Marina. I can tell you I've just returned from the border town of Blace, where it's a very grim scene indeed. We're seeing tens of thousands of refugees that have come across from Kosovo into Macedonia. The United Nations, as you said, points out that there are tens of thousands. It says 40,000 may have come across in the last 36 hours. These people, as you can see here, have very little shelter, very little food, and absolutely no sanitation. There are some medical tents set up there, but only a handful, only about 5, dealing, as I say, with these 30 or 40,000 refugees on the ground up there. Many of them have been giving out food parcels. Aid workers are there distributing loaves of bread at least. As I say, these medical tents are straining under the load of trying to deal with the sickness that's now breaking out within the refugees. These people are living in very exposed conditions. It's raining. The rain is freezing. I can tell you that 11 people overnight have been confirmed dead. And while we were there just an hour ago, we saw several people being carried, their heads covered with blankets, into the medical tent. So I'm sure the situation there is likely to get worse if the aid effort isn't improved. Now, there is an aid effort underway. There are 3 refugee camps being set up with the help of some NATO forces here. But really, these are just catering for a flow of refugees which no one has really predicted would surge in the last couple of days in the way that it has. These camps are expected to be able to keep about 15,000 people each. But as I say, tens of thousands are now streaming across every day. And so there is an aid effort underway here, but it's at the moment pretty insufficient to cater to the kind of situation we are now seeing. Marina?
Matthew, when you're talking to the refugees, what kind of things are they telling you?
Well, they're very desperate at the moment. They're very concerned about their immediate future. Many of these people have friends and family in Macedonia who hopefully they want to go and stay with, to provide them at least with some kind of food and shelter, but so many more. The vast majority here have absolutely nowhere to go. They've got no money. They're saying that they've left Kosovo now and the Serbs have taken all their belongings. They're saying they were forced at gunpoint, some of them, to leave their homes. Many of them didn't want to go at all, but they felt so intimidated by Serb threats, they felt they had to leave. And absolutely, there's no way of verifying these stories from the refugees. There is no international community on the ground in Kosovo. All the aid workers and all the foreign journalists have either been evacuated or expelled from the region. But what is interesting is that the stories we're hearing from the refugees are so consistent, and that lends them some kind of credibility at least. Marina?
How prepared are the aid organizations to help these people?
Well, the aid effort is being stepped up here. We're seeing a flight later on today from the American organization Americare. That's going to be bringing relief supplies and medical supplies. Other European countries have got together and they're trying to launch a bigger aid effort, as is the Red Cross. As I say, this aid effort was started when the flow of refugees was in the hundreds and thousands every day. In the last couple of days, we've seen this huge increase. Tens of thousands have come across now. There are tens of thousands waiting just the other side of the border inside Kosovo, and they're wanting to come across as well. And so, as I say, there is this aid effort underway. They're doing what they can, but at the moment it's insufficient and overwhelming.
CNN's Matthew Chance reporting from Macedonia. And when world news continues, residents of one Yugoslav city mourn the destruction of a landmark. And we will look at the historical background of the Kosovo conflict.
America is cheering a new comic hero, Roberto Benigni, in an unforgettable performance that has audiences laughing and falling in love. This extraordinary film is the winner of 3 Academy Awards, including Best Actor, Roberto Benigni. It will restore your faith in movies. Life is Beautiful, rated PG-13, now playing.
You know you need life insurance to protect the family you love. We know the way things go, it's hard to find the money to pay the premiums. You know you've got to do it, and we know we can help you. To protect your family's future security, many financial advisors recommend insurance coverage equal to 5 times your annual income. Wait, before you say, I can't afford that, look into this money-saving offer from Garden State Life Insurance. If you're in good health and don't smoke cigarettes, Garden State Life can offer you quality term life insurance that may save you as much as 50% off what you're paying for term life insurance protection. Garden State Life guarantees your premiums remain the same for 8, 10, even 20 years to come. So if you need $25,000 to $1 million or more of quality life insurance protection,
call today, 800-306-5300 for this free information package and confidential coverage proposal. Garden State Life Insurance, 800-306-5300. Toll free, 306-5300.
Hundreds of residents of Belgrade and other cities have started forming human chains along bridges in the country. The protests are being organized to prevent further bombings of bridges after a landmark crossing was destroyed in the city of Novi Sad. CNN's Brent Sadler reports.
The people of Novi Sad, Yugoslavia's second largest city, came to pay their respects to a dear friend, the city's old Petrovaradin Bridge. Its back broken by a NATO strike, the iron structure swallowed by the swift water of the Danube River. To thousands of protesters who took to the streets of Novi Sad Friday, it was more than just a bridge linking the old quarter to the new city. It was a focus of social life where people once walked and talked or enjoyed the view. They can hardly believe it's gone.
Barbarian attack of NATO aviation, because this bridge is a symbol of Novi Sad. Each day of bombing is going to make another or 2 or 10 degrees more reaction against that. And the destruction of this bridge just intensifies this reaction.
It was the oldest and most frequently used of the city's 3 river crossings, and carried a water supply now split in 2. As a result, say officials, 50,000 people are now running short, and Europe's longest waterway is blocked by the debris indefinitely. The crippling of the Danube as a vital transport link has repercussions far beyond Yugoslavia. A number of Central European economies are already suffering. River barges cannot move in either direction. Countries like Hungary, Croatia, and Romania could feel the effects. Bulgaria already reckons 15% of its international trade is lost. Others were counting the cost of NATO's attack. Nearby roofs were blown off homes, repairs underway. The concern here now is that if NATO could destroy this bridge so easily, others might follow, especially in Belgrade, where demonstrators held hands to symbolize a human shield over the River Sava. The capital has 4 important bridges they do not want to lose. Brent Sadler, CNN, Belgrade.
Former Kosovo residents are mourning the loss of their homes. More than 200,000 people have fled the Serbian province now. The refugee crisis is getting increased attention in Washington. CNN's John King reports.
The president promised more help to the Kosovo refugees and more vigorous strikes on key Yugoslav military installations.
We are making the air campaign more intense. We're adding targets.
Flames in downtown Belgrade hours later were part of what administration sources promised would be more aggressive strikes in the days ahead. B-1 bombers joined the attacks for the first time Thursday, and the Pentagon is sending an aircraft carrier and more cruise missile ships.
I still believe that we have a good possibility of achieving our mission with the means that we have deployed.
But the endless stream of refugees into Macedonia and Albania is raising doubts about NATO's strategy of using airstrikes alone. The president insists Kosovo is not lost.
We recognized when we started that this campaign, this air campaign, would not be a week or two proposition.
The president was briefed on U.S. government and private humanitarian relief efforts, and those on hand echoed the White House in saying Serb troops, not the NATO airstrikes, are to blame for the crisis.
This is depopulation, and the only thing similar to it in recent history is Stalin's social engineering in the 30s.
U.S. and NATO troops will take a larger role in the relief efforts in Albania and Macedonia. Giant C-5 transports at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware were being loaded with more than 500,000 meals and other supplies for delivery to Albania beginning Saturday. The president said others were desperately in need of help, too.
We must be increasingly concerned about the plight of displaced people who are actually trapped inside Kosovo.
But the Pentagon says it won't drop humanitarian supplies into Kosovo anytime soon.
We would be resupplying the Serb military more than we would be feeding Kosovars.
The immediate concern is the mass exodus from Kosovo. But the president was also told that if there is a peace deal that allows the refugees to go back, it will take years and cost untold millions to help them rebuild their homes and their lives. John King, CNN, the White House.
Contention over Kosovo is centuries old. Serbs and Albanians have long disputed the ownership and status of the area. For more on this historical perspective, here's a report by Jonathan Aiken.
Both Serbs and Albanians lay claim to Kosovo. The Albanians say they were there first, citing settlements from the 6th century and ancestors going back thousands of years before that. For the Serbs, Kosovo was the heart and soul of a medieval kingdom and a religious center.
The Serbs have something else in Kosovo. 1,200 churches and monasteries, some of them 1,100 years old.
The Serbs, joined by Albanian soldiers, lost Kosovo to the Ottoman Turks in 1389. By 1459, all of what is now Kosovo and most of modern-day Serbia was under Turkish rule as part of the Ottoman Empire. As the Ottomans expanded their territory over the next 230 years, Serbs living in Kosovo migrated northward. They were replaced by Albanians who left their mountainous homeland in the south for Kosovo's better farmland. In 1912, Serbia and its allies drove the Turks out of the region, ending 500 years of Turk rule. Serbia claimed Kosovo and its Albanian majority as its own. Through World War I, World War II, and post-war communism, the Serb population dropped thanks to economics and emigration, some of it forced. Meanwhile, the Albanian birth rate exploded.
Births, the average Albanian family is about 9 members. The average Serbian family is about 2 members. That takes care of that.
Communist leader Joseph Tito held Yugoslavia's ethnic patchwork together through one-party rule and a ruthless police force. But in 1974, Tito granted full autonomy for Kosovo, giving the province nearly independent status.
It had a Supreme Court. It was represented in the highest levels of government. But the Albanians were still not happy because they, in fact, wanted a republic.
The Yugoslav Federation didn't survive Tito's death in 1980. And when Serbian Communist Party leader Slobodan Milosevic gained power in 1987, he promised to restore Serbia's dominance in the region. It took 2 years for Milosevic to strip Kosovo, by then 90% Albanian, of its autonomy. Throughout the early 90s, there were protests from both sides over Kosovo's future.
The Albanians were not a threat because they were not organizing a military uprising. They were pursuing their aims politically.
Since 1988, skirmishes between Serb forces and the Kosovo Liberation Army have escalated into a NATO air war and a battle of wills between the alliance and Belgrade. Today, the roads from Kosovo are clogged with refugees, and the fate of an ancient land is once again being determined by war. Jonathan Aiken for CNN, Washington.
Turning now to other world news, Libya is asking permission to open a diplomatic mission in the Netherlands. A foreign ministry spokeswoman in Amsterdam says the request is linked to the trial of 2 Libyan suspects in the bombing of a Pan Am jet over Lockerbie, Scotland. Libya announced last month it would surrender the 2 men by April the 6th. The Chief United Nations Council left for Libya Friday to escort the men to the Netherlands. They are to be tried there by a panel of Scottish judges. 270 people died when Pan Am Flight 103 exploded over Lockerbie in 1988. An atmosphere of uncertainty is marking the Easter weekend in Northern Ireland. Saturday starts the 2nd year of Northern Ireland's peace accord. The province's politicians were to have formed a joint government Friday, a pivotal part of the peace deal. But the Irish and British prime ministers have given the politicians until April 13th to consider a new proposal. The plan would allow the IRA-allied Sinn Féin party to take 2 posts in the new government if the IRA gives up some weapons within a month. A United States military jury is recommending that a Marine captain be dismissed for obstructing justice. Joseph Schweitzer was the navigator of a Marine jet that cut a gondola cable in northern Italy last year. 20 people were killed. On Monday, he pleaded guilty to destroying a personal videotape he had made of the accident. The jet's pilot was acquitted of manslaughter last month. The Indonesian government is deploying extra troops to help contain unrest in the province of Maluku. Media reports say as many as 90 homes have been set afire in Tual, about 2,300 kilometers east of the capital, Jakarta. At least 18 people have been killed as a result of clashes between local Christians and Muslims. Hospitals in the area report dozens of people injured. The sectarian violence erupted in January. Many Christians around the world are celebrating traditional Easter events to mark the culmination of Holy Week. Pope John Paul II heard confessions in St. Peter's Basilica, a traditional Good Friday rite. Thousands of people joined the event, which commemorates the crucifixion of Jesus. In Jerusalem, Christians and Palestinians took a more literal approach. Worshippers performed a bloody reenactment of Jesus' last journey. The highlight of Holy Week occurs on Sunday when Christians celebrate their belief in Christ's resurrection. And we'll have more on NATO's strike on Yugoslavia in 30 minutes. Of course, if events warrant, we will break into our regular programming to bring you the latest news and information as it becomes available.